All right, ready to dive deep. Today we're uncovering the story of a family you might not know, but absolutely should. The Bustills.
They're one of those hidden gems of American history, especially when you look at the history of equality for African Americans and women.
Right. We're talking activists, artists, entrepreneurs, and their impact is woven into the history of New Jersey and Pennsylvania, too.
Oh, definitely. Their story really unfolds in both states.
And it spans centuries. We're going to trace their journey from the Revolutionary War all the way to the 20th century.
It's amazing what they accomplished. We've got excerpts from Wikipedia, historical articles, and even a website about Paul Robeson.
Yeah, that Paul Robeson. We'll get to that connection later. It's
Huh.
a good one.
By weaving these sources together, we're going to paint a picture of a family that was right at the heart of the fight for equality in the United States.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning with Cyrus Bustill, the family patriarch.
Now, Cyrus's story begins in 1732. Imagine baking bread for George Washington's troops during the Revolution.
Wow. Talk about being a part of history.
But Cyrus's story goes way deeper than that. He was born to a Quaker father and an enslaved African mother.
So he had to overcome incredible odds just to get to that point.
Absolutely. He fought for his freedom and eventually became a successful businessman, even a landowner,
And get this, he was a founding member of the Free African Society in 1787,
which, for context, is one of the earliest civil rights organizations in U.S. history.
decades before the Civil War. That's incredible.
Right. Talk about courage. He was challenging the very foundation of a society built on racial inequality.
And that's where this idea of a family legacy takes root. The Bustills weren't just surviving. They were fighting for a better future.
It's a powerful story, and it's one that continues through generations.
So Cyrus and his wife Elizabeth had 8 children. And get ready for this, their descendants achieved some incredible things.
And in a variety of fields. We're talking journalism, education, art, activism.
A real dynasty of overachievers.
Yeah.
So let's introduce a few of them. First, we have Gertrude Bustill-Mousseau.
Gertrude. A trailblazing journalist and a powerful voice for women's rights.
She was writing for both black and white publications, advocating for equality when that was practically unheard of.
And we can't forget Sarah Mapps Douglas.
Another incredible woman, an educator and abolitionist.
She even challenged segregation within the Quaker community.
Wait, hold on. Challenging segregation within the Quakers? I thought they were supposed to be the progressive ones.
Well, it just goes to show that the fight for equality often has to happen within our own circles, within the systems we're a part of.
That's a good point. Okay, so then there's Robert Douglas Jr. and David Bustill Bowser, 2 talented artists.
Absolutely. Robert studied under Thomas Sully, but faced constant discrimination because of his race.
His story is a reminder that talent alone wasn't enough. The fight for equality extended to the art world, too.
And David, he designed those powerful banners and flags for black regiments during the Civil War.
Imagine the impact those visuals had. Symbols of pride and resistance.
And more than just decoration, they were visual proclamations of their fight for freedom.
It's remarkable how the Bustills were making waves in so many different fields.
It speaks to the incredible diversity of talents within the family, their drive to make a difference.
And that brings us to Paul Robeson. Remember that connection we mentioned?
Oh, are you talking about?
Yep. Paul Robeson, the world-renowned actor, singer, athlete, and activist, was a direct descendant of Cyrus Bustill.
Wow, I mean, talk about a family legacy.
It's like the Bustill spirit reached its peak with Paul Robeson. He took that fight for social justice to an international stage.
It really makes you think about the weight of that family history.
Yeah, like, did Robeson feel that connection to their fight for equality? Did it influence his own activism?
I think it's safe to say he did. His mother was Maria Louisa Bustill, a direct descendant of Cyrus.
So those stories must have been passed down through the generations.
Exactly. It's not just about knowing the stories, though.
Right. It's about how those stories shape us, how they inspire us.
And in Robeson's case, it seems like he took that Bustill spirit and ran with it, made it his own.
Absolutely. He took it to a global stage. But let's back up a bit. Robeson was born in 1898.
Just a few decades after the Civil War. Can you imagine what it was like for him growing up?
Facing the racism and discrimination of that era.
Exactly. And then going on to Rutgers College, being one of the only black students there.
He wasn't just at Rutgers, though. He excelled there. 2-time All-American, valedictorian, Phi Beta Kappa.
It's like he was determined to prove something.
To show the world what black excellence looked like.
Yeah, and to live up to the potential that his family had fought so hard for him to be able to express.
That's a great point. So he graduates from Rutgers, goes on to get a law degree from Columbia.
And then decides to pursue a career in the arts.
Right. What was that about?
It seems like he felt a pull towards using his voice literally and figuratively to uplift African and African American culture,
To tell stories that resonated, to challenge stereotypes.
and to use art as a tool for social change, which he did, and on a massive scale.
He became this internationally acclaimed singer and actor, starring in plays like Othello and Showboat.
Powerful roles that directly challenged the racist caricatures that were so common in theater at the time.
Especially his Othello, a black man commanding the stage, playing one of Shakespeare's most complex heroes. It must have been incredible to see.
Absolutely groundbreaking. But it's important to remember Robeson was more than just an entertainer.
Right. He was a vocal advocate for social justice. He refused to perform for segregated audiences, spoke out against racism.
Both in the U.S. and abroad.
He saw the fight for civil rights as part of a global struggle for human rights.
It's that same thread we saw running through the Bustill family.
From Cyrus fighting for his own freedom, to Gertrude and Sarah pushing for equality, to Robert and David using their art.
And then Robeson takes it to a whole new level, connecting with movements all over the world.
He became this unifying force, bringing people together around a shared vision of justice.
But of course, that kind of outspokenness didn't come without consequences.
Especially during the McCarthy era, a dark time fueled by fear and paranoia.
Robeson's association with communist organizations made him a target.
It's crazy to think that someone who dedicated his life to equality was labeled a traitor.
Just because of his political beliefs. They revoked his passport, blacklisted him.
Essentially destroyed his career.
It's a stark reminder of how fragile freedom can be.
But even in the face of all that, Robeson never backed down.
He kept speaking out, even when it meant risking everything.
He knew the fight was bigger than himself, and he was willing to pay the price.
His courage is truly inspiring. He didn't let fear silence him. He stayed true to his values.
It's what makes him such an enduring figure. He reminds us that the fight for justice is never easy.
And that there will always be those who try to silence dissent.
But even in the darkest times, there are those who refuse to be silenced.
Who stand up for what's right, no matter the cost. So we've seen how Robeson carried the Bustill torch.
Took their fight for equality to an international level. But now let's shift our focus back to the family as a whole.
Back to their impact on the United States, particularly in New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
They were fighting for more than just social justice, right? They were building institutions.
Absolutely. Schools, businesses, organizations, they were creating a more just and equitable society.
And a lot of their work was centered in Philadelphia.
Right, where it all began with Cyrus.
They left an undeniable mark on the city's African-American community.
Their presence is still felt today.
It makes you think, what would Philadelphia look like without their contributions?
It shows the power of individual actions, how they can ripple outward and shape communities.
They were pioneers, and they remind us that history isn't just about the big names and grand narratives.
It's about the everyday people who, through their actions, create change.
And that makes their story even more powerful.
They weren't born into privilege. They had to fight for everything.
And they did it with grace, determination, and purpose.
Their story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
And to the power of family to inspire and fuel social change.
It's a story that deserves to be told and remembered.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Bustill family, what are some of the key takeaways? What can we learn from them?
For me, it's their unwavering commitment to making the world a better place.
They didn't back down from challenges. They faced them head on.
And they understood that progress requires courage and perseverance.
They were also masters of collaboration, of building community.
They knew they couldn't do it alone.
Which is such a crucial lesson for us today.
Especially in a world that often feels so divided.
We need to find ways to come together, to bridge our differences.
And remember that the fight for justice continues.
The Bustills fought for equality in their time, and we're still fighting for it today.
Their story shows us that change is possible.
That even small actions can have a big impact.
It's a call to action, a reminder that we all have a role to play.
So think about it. What injustices do you see around you?
What can you do to address them?
How can you contribute to a better future?
The Bustills might not be household names, but their impact is undeniable.
They were pioneers, activists, artists, visionaries.
They helped shape the nation we know today.
And their story reminds us that we all have the power to make a difference.
To leave a legacy of hope.
To create a more just and equitable world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We hope their story has inspired you.
And left you with a renewed sense of purpose.
Until next time, keep exploring.